Hey there everybody, welcome to this ProWorkflow introduction. The intention behind this video is really to give an idea of what ProWorkflow does and how to get it started. For those of you who have maybe just signed up for a trial or a subscription account, you've got a blank account in front of you, you need to know how to get started. So I'll start where you'll be starting, just on the home page here. This is effectively just our dashboard. Not too much customizability involved, but it does give you summaries of all of your projects, tasks, time, your financials here, and then of course all of your upcoming activity. So based on the start and finish dates of your tasks and projects, an upcoming view of everything here, as well as recent activities that have taken place in the tool, and then all of your staff members when they last logged in and what they're doing now. The next place I'll take you in the tool is just through to settings. Before we really get started with adding our contacts in, maybe some projects, tasks, and time records, there's a couple of items that it's worth visiting in our settings page first. The first one being our general settings. This allows us to figure out our auto numbering system and where we'll be starting and effectively how it'll be progressing, as well as a couple of other things like whether or not your contractors and clients can see messages, what links are displayed across the top of the system, and how you treat empty categories within the tool and the various places that those show up. The next place is your look and feel settings. This is where you'll customize the look of the account. So update your logo, just right at the bottom here, your header logo. If you can, try use a logo with a transparent background. The reason for this is that you'll see here, our system uses two colors as a gradient. So in my case, red and orange, red starting here, orange starting here. But what that means is because the color isn't consistent, if you do use a solid color in the background, it's generally advised that you use the same color in both instances, because otherwise you'll be able to see that background color of your logo. If it's transparent, you circumvent this issue entirely and you'll be able to use whatever color scheme you choose, whether that's one of ours or something that you'll customize yourself, just like so. There's also this sample here, so if you do want to make any changes and just check out how it looks before you do it, for example, I might not follow through on this one, that's where you can check it out first. Now the next area is just down a little bit further. This is the Add Staff button. Very handy for when you're starting off with your account, for the reason that it's the fastest way to add in several staff members at once. For your new trials, for your professional accounts, you'll see this option just here. Please note for advanced accounts, this option will not be there. Next in our list is our users and permission settings. This is just a good place to go to arrange for effectively what people can see and do before you even add them into the system. You'll see we've got a list of roles here. I can effectively decide what an administrator is and what they can do, in our case everything, but let's say a project manager. These guys can see all the work, but they can't necessarily see sensitive business info, but maybe I want to change that. So what I'll do is hit edit role, add that into their list, and then right down at the bottom here there's a save button, and it'll even tell me what users are currently assigned to this role before I do it, just so I know exactly what I'm about to do. Now if you'd like to create a new role, you're free to do so just by hitting the Add button up the top here. If you'd like to make that a copy of an existing role or a new role entirely, that is your choice. Now, if you'd like to assign anybody to these roles, just make sure you choose them from the left-hand side, pick what role they'll be using, and then hit Save. Or if they're kind of a one-off and they're a bit unique in their permission level, you can use custom like I've done here with Annie. The next thing that it's good to take a look at is your task templates. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about these later, but it can be worth at least taking a look at this page because this kind of defines how our templates function once they're in an actual project, and we'll do that in a second. So you'll see here that we've got effectively task lists that we'll be pasting into projects, along with who's working on them, how much time they'll have to do so, and relative start and due days. So when we go to drop this template in, it'll ask us for a real day, so say the 25th of April, and then use these as reference points to populate that information going forward. Now, if you'd like to create a new one, just this button up the top here, but please note again, if you're working from a trial or a brand new account, you'll have some of our defaults in the system, so take a look at those if you're looking for some ideas. Further down, there is the project settings. This is just your default information when we go to set up a project. So you'll notice that when I go to set up a project, there's a training title and some text in my description area. A popular option might be to use this as a place to perhaps prompt people to add in some relevant information, like scope out the project, define what will be happening, and define the ultimate purpose of the project and what you intend to be doing. A little bit further down, we have our category editor. So you'll see here that I have a series of departments built into my tool, but feel free to set this up in any way that will suit your workflows best. Sometimes that comes in the form of phase-based work, so you might have a phase 1 through to phase 4 as your categories, and you'll just be rotating your projects through those categories as you complete them, as you progress on them. But of course, if you'd like to do something more departmental like I've done here, feel free. If there's another way that you think you could do things, try it out, test it out, ask us questions if you'd like to, but we'd like to see you set up with the best system you possibly could have. There's also general task categories for those tasks that kind of fall outside of a specific project's jurisdiction, and then note categories here at the bottom as well. Quite similarly, we have a tags editor just below your category editor. Now this applies to contacts, projects, and tasks. And unlike categories, which you can only assign to tasks and it is 1 per project, sorry, you can only assign to projects and it is 1 per project, tasks apply to, again, projects and tasks. So the advantage that gives us is I can have a separate list for projects and a separate list for tasks, so I can kind of have unique identifiers that are applicable in both situations. Now the other advantage of using tags is that you can have as many associated to your projects and tasks as you'd like. So something in my case could be marked for review, but also perhaps requires a document to be finished, just as an example. Now categories and tags can be used in reports, so if you'd like to, like I've done here, have an issue tag and then a corresponding report that documents all of the issues for, say, tasks completed in a given month, you can do that too. Now, moving past, the one last thing you might want to check on this page is notifications. Effectively how to read this is on the left-hand side, we're seeing what notifications will be sent out, and then further on in the next 4 columns, we're seeing who will be receiving them. In my case, because again, this is a demo account, I have all of these notifications turned off. If you're trialing the system, you might want to do something similar, so just deselect all of these options, and even though I've got, say, staff and clients enabled, here, because the notification is never being sent out, it truly does not matter which of these are clicked in. However, if I do enable this notification to be sent, it will only go to staff members that are assigned to this new created project and clients that are relevant to this newly created project. So keep in mind, depending on what notifications you turn on, they're going to go out to different people. So just be sure that you've got the right build depending on your requirements. And again, if you do have any questions about this, please feel free to ask us. Moving back to our projects page, you'll see these categories are laid out here, and if I expand them, here are our actual projects. So we're seeing the titles, the clients, all of this information loaded in. But before we go to create a project, I'd actually like to take you back to contacts. Your account will be new, so it will be lacking in this department. But before we actually go creating projects, we need to have entities that we can attribute them back to. So to do that, we just go to our contacts page here. Now you'll see that we break our contacts down into individual contacts, so that's the left-hand side, and then organizational company contacts on the right-hand side. Now contacts, so the individuals, will all be linked back to a company. For example here, John, who I'm logged in as, is linked back to ProWorkflow. Annie here is similarly marked to ProWorkflow. If I choose the more generically named client contact, you see they are associated with the client company. On the company side of things, you can check the same thing by clicking on the company, and you can see on the right-hand side who is associated with them. And of course, clicking on either organization will take you back and forth between each side of the system. Now, the color coding defines what type of contacts these are. So Adam here, as an example, is the green, which is a client contact. The dark grey here refers to staff members, so these will be who's logging into our projects, who's going to be completing tasks, who's going to be adding time records. Orange is for contractors, who are sort of one-off users that we can provide free access to. They can log into the system and take a look at their assigned projects and tasks and even complete those tasks. There is also other. Now, other is kind of a miscellaneous category here, but feel free to use it if you have contacts who you'd like to store their information in the system. However, you're perhaps unclear on which other category they might fall into. Now, for all of these contacts, whether they're an individual or a company, we can click into them and we'll get access to the following things. So there's a notes section here, so you can continually be adding notes. These will be time-stamped and they will also be searchable. You've got current activity for all currently assigned, projects and tasks. And then historic activity covers those projects and tasks that were assigned to this individual, however, have since passed, so they're completed. There is also some information down the right-hand side here regarding this and just sort of breaking it down and giving you some tables. Now, lastly, if you do have access enabled for this particular contact, you'll see the Send Login Details button is available for you to use. Now, when it comes to adding new staff members in especially, I would highly recommend using this. Effectively how it works is an email will go out to the assigned contacts registered email that will provide a link by which they can just click on that and it'll log them straight into the tool. Now, as for creating new contacts, we can do that by clicking this big green plus button up the top left. And in fact, this button will allow us to create anything we need in ProWorkflow. So we'll start with just a contact here. You'll see that I can list a first name, a last name, and a company and an email. So these are my required fields. So I might say that Bob here, Bob Smith is my contact, and he is going to be working for, let's say, the AGL Corporation here. Now, clients, you'll see I can actually also provide with a login, but keep in mind if they are logging into the system, it is A, free, and B, they will not see anything that does not belong to their associated company. So Bob here, for example, belongs to the AGL Corporation. He can't all of a sudden turn around and look at things that we're doing for 0800 Flour. On the same side, if I just quickly enter in an email here, we can go to further info. And what that will do is show us address information as well as social media and a drinks preference down the bottom here. From here we can also access our tags menu as well as set a profile picture for this contact. Now, creating a company contact is done in much the same way, but you have a few different fields to fill in. But keep in mind, everything you really need will be here. So you've got their contact information, their name, their code, their address, their social media, and then again, back to our tag system up the top there. When it comes to adding in new staff members, just as a by the way, you'll see that I am able to choose a role right from this menu. So if we have set up roles before, then we can use these new ones here. Now that we have some context in the system, perhaps we have some staff members added in, we have some clients that we can reference projects against, let's go to our projects page and actually add in a new project. So from here, I need to hit the plus button again, and you'll see because I'm on the projects page, that is where I'm being directed. So the Add Project pop-up has two required fields. The first is your client, the second is the title. Now, remember before in our project settings, our default, I had some training in the title, and more than that, in the description area, I had some lorem ipsum built in, just so there is an idea of what text looks like in this area. So that field has come through for me automatically. Now, all these other fields here, as I said, not required, so we can feel free to, for example, with the start date, clear that out. Maybe I'm setting up this project and I don't know exactly when I'll be starting quite just yet, so I'm free to clear that out for the moment. The rest can be edited on demand at any time over the project's life cycle. So if maybe we're unclear of the category, we can just leave that for the moment and change it when we do have a bit more awareness as to where that's going to sit. Now you'll notice that this specific demo account does have quotes and invoice enabled. If you don't have those fields enabled, however you would like to leave, say, a quote total or invoice total, you'll just need to hit the use manual total buttons and you can set those values in yourself. If you do have those modules enabled, any quotes or invoices that you attach to this project, those values will be displayed here under the automatic setting. Now, description is fine by me, the notes are fine. The assigned to is where I choose effectively what contacts will be associated to this project, so which staff members will be working on it. Let's say Annie and Harold. Our clients, so which clients from our relevant company will be associated with this project, who our stakeholders are, and finally our contractors. If I have any of those working on this project, which will they be and what tasks will they be working on. Now finally we have the selection of a task template. This is where I can choose through our list of templates as discussed earlier and effectively decide which one will be used. Now within this area you'll see a start date appear right at the top. So this is where I could say, if I had an idea as to when this project was starting, I can say it was next Monday and all dates will populate forward from that date. So you see the very first start date we see here is the 10th of May and everything is being populated forward from there. So I know that this project should wrap up around the 4th of June. If conversely I have an idea of my end date, my deadline, but I don't necessarily know when we need to be starting, I can choose end date instead, go forward to whatever that date may be, let's say the 15th of August. And you'll see scrolling down here that the very final due date is relevant to this. Now, it is likely that the 15th of August this year is a weekend, so we have clearly skipped forward to the 16th. But nonetheless, everything is populated from here backwards, so that I know to complete this project in the usual time, I'll need to start it at least by the 20th of July, which gives me plenty of time. The last option on this tab is the show staff availability. So if we have decided that some of our staff members are working on these tasks at the templating level, so when we created the template, it will show us roughly how available these people are to actually complete those tasks. So in this case, Josh here has been assigned to effectively, well, he's the only one that has been assigned to this task template, and so we can see roughly how busy Josh will be if he takes on this extra work. The last option on this page, just before we hit done down here, is the settings. This is just a place where you can enable and disable certain functions. So for example, if we didn't need quotes or invoices from this project, we can remove both of those. If I didn't need the description, I can deselect that, and you see even as I do so, the description field disappears from our add project pop-up. Hitting finish now, that will create the project for me and take me straight to it. So waiting for the page to load, and here is my new project. Based on some automatic values that I've placed within the tool, we've got our auto numbering generated. And I tried to use a company code here, but clearly this one was blank, so nothing quite came through. So everything is pretty much laid out for us right at the top. So these are all of my basic details from that first page of the Add Project pop-up. My financials are up the top right. Just beneath that, I can see who else is working on the project. And here's my task list where all of our individual items are being displayed. I know who's working on them, when they're starting and finishing, how much time will be spent on them, whether that's billable or not, and then how much time has been spent on them as far. To add in new tasks into the task page here, you just need to scroll down to the bottom of the page, and of course if your project is at this point blank, you didn't use a template, this feature here would be appearing right at the top. So if you'd like to sort of build out your task list on a more ad hoc basis, we just need to click Add Task, and then we can start typing, and then hit Enter, and then that task has been created for us right away. We can see that John's been assigned. I could have set start and finish dates had I chose to, but here we go just there. Now you see there's a bit of an order to these tasks. So right here, account setup is our first, followed by 1.1 through to 1.3, and then we go through to research and communications, or recommendations rather, which is task 2. So that subtasking function is controlled by these arrows here, but to get these sort of emboldened tasks that you see have a collapsible function, what we'll need to do is go into our Add Edit Tasks menu, and you see here, account setup, research recommendations, site work, etc. are all set up as heading tasks, whereas everything else is normal, like so. From this page, by the way, I can edit any details associated with the task just by hitting the drop down with on it. I can change the staff assigned, the description, I can add files, I can even add prerequisites if you'd like to start getting into dependencies. There is also time allocated and a billable rate to the right hand side here. Now I also have access to the Add Tasks menu just down the bottom here. I can also add a template or even a recurring task should I choose to, where I would set in a default name and have that task repeat on a specific basis. Exiting out of this menu, there are actually a couple of other ways that I can add tasks into the system. You see if I hover over all of these tasks here, on the far left-hand side there's actually a little green plus button. Hitting that brings my Add Task screen just in between those two tasks there. So if I say Task 5, enter that in, you'll see it gets entered into the same order. So very easy to just populate in the middle of a particular workflow. Now the other option that you might have noticed when I click onto this Add Task section is Paste a List. This is a great function if you've been, say, set a list of deliverables or achievable items from your client, from your boss, whoever. You can copy that list, paste it in directly, and all of those individual items, those line-broken items, will be created as their own tasks. So for example, if I just copy in some of the content from above and paste that in, I'm seeing much more than the handful of tasks that would have been created just from this list here. That is because effectively how this table is coded is as cells. So content is treated as its own line broken item, as is the 10th of August, as is the 12th of August. So all of that was recognized as its own task list. However, if you are just copying from an email, from Excel, from Word, of course you won't have quite this sort of problem. Now, if I'd like to start adding time records against these tasks, I see that we've got some assignments built out, and in fact, everything looks to be assigned to Josh here, so I might quickly change that. I'm going to click and drag Josh and just remove him from all tasks, just like that, and now I can start in a more free-form way assigning individuals to these tasks, just like that. And now that I've done that, again, I can see that I've got some time allocation set out, so maybe I want to start tracking time. So we've got 4 different methods of doing that within ProWorkflow. The first is a live tracker, just works by clicking this button here. And you see right up the top here a timer has started. So we can hit stop once we've finished working on it, and then there's our time record. We can also go into the task and then add time manually. So this would be done just by choosing the day that we started, the time at which we started, and then a certain hour value, and then add. And just like that, you see within the task, in the time section, I know when it happened, any notes, how long it was, and who did it. And then of course all of that is going to be totaled up in our time spent section just here. Now a couple of other ways of adding that time in. We could of course go to the tasks page, looking at all of these tasks here, perhaps grouped by upcoming. I can see that I could, for example, use the live tracking feature from this page, or by clicking on a task, I could add manual time here as well. Now lastly, of course, on the time page, there are another couple of methods. First is the drag and drop function, which will show me all of my assigned tasks on the left and this current week's worth of work on the right-hand side. This is my timetable. So I can go and denote that maybe I spent a couple of hours on Monday morning on this task just here. So I'll click and drag from 8 o'clock, and just like that, there's my 2 hours right on Monday for this particular task. So your entire timesheet can be built out using this system, and hopefully by just showing you assigned tasks, you'll have an easy time navigating this left-hand side as well. Direct entry is the next method, and the last method, and probably the fastest method as well. It works in the exact same way as drag and drop, in that you have your timesheet on the right-hand side and your assigned tasks on the left. You just need to click those tasks, say that I did an hour on Monday, and maybe 3 hours on Thursday, and then add, and then those time records are again on those days for that task. The only weakness, and the one thing that I will warn you for using the direct entry system, is because it doesn't have the capability of denoting at what time of the day these happened. All time records entered using direct entry will be put to the top of that day and then built out from there. A couple of other things on this page. In fact, back on our projects page, you see if we do click into any one of these projects, as well as having our task list, we do in fact have a timeline page as well. In fact, just so we're clear, I'll go back to the project we were looking at 2 seconds ago, the one that we created. And I can do that easily by clicking on our magnifying glass search option and going back to our recent projects. So if we scroll a little bit further down, you can see that we have a timetable here. So because we built out this project a little bit forward in the future, we can just scroll the appropriate amount, and here our project is. So the first thing you might notice is the dependency built in. We can set out new ones just by hovering over the task, grabbing that blue dot, and putting it forward just like so. So now task 2.1 is dependent on both tasks 1.1 and 2.1. We can also edit dates from this section, so just by clicking and dragging we can postpone or bring a task forward. We could extend it, giving it a few more days, or we could push its start date back slightly. I can do this in bulk, let's say with these tasks here, by highlighting several at once using a lasso function and then moving them all in bulk, just like that. This timetable, of course, just applies to this project, but from the time page, I can go into the timeline here, and I can see one that applies for multiple projects, well, across all projects as is, but if I go into adjust filters, I've got a few more options surrounding what I'm seeing, down to even removing the tasks from that view, so I'm only seeing project start and finish times. There's also a calendar, which you're free to use, which will show start and due dates just across a standard calendar view. You can also set up events from this view, just like that, which are slightly unique from tasks in that they don't have a project association, and you can choose a specific start time, as opposed to just a day on which this task will commence. Hopefully this has been a enlightening view and a good way to introduce you to ProWorkflow. If you have any questions for us at all, please feel free to hit the question mark button at the top right of the system. That will open up a chat function for you where you can directly interact with one of our staff members. Of course, you can feel free to email subscriptions@proworkflow.com if you have some product-related questions or you require any training, which is, by the way, a free-of-charge service for subscribers. Or you can email through to support if you've run into more of a technical issue. We're more than happy to help with anything that you require, and again, all of our support is on the house, so you just let us know what you need and we'll do our best to help you out. Hopefully I'll be in touch with some of you in future for training, but for everybody else, we'll catch you next time, and if you'd like to check out any of our other videos on our channel, please do. We'll see you later.